hair, so I thought it made sense to do a new introduction video. If you're new here, if you're not, welcome to the Money Matters feature brought to you by Money Support Group. Some of these interviews are packed with lots and lots of financial information, while others are quite hard-hitting. Either way, I think they're all worth your time. However, I might be a bit biased saying that because, well, I'm fronting them, but still check them out and see what you think. If you like what you're seeing or what you're hearing, then please do like, comment, and subscribe. By hitting that subscribe bell, you are making sure that you are on the ball for all of our content that comes out on this channel. And if you want to find out a bit more information about Money Support Group, the link to the website is down below in the description. So click that if you want to find out some more information. I'm absolutely delighted this week to be joined by another brilliant guest, Alan from Punter Southall Aspire. How are you doing, Alan?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks, Jonny. Good to meet you.
Fantastic. So I can already guess what people's first questions are. So we'll go with that straight away. First of all, Alan, who are you? Tell us a bit about yourself, and also, more importantly, tell us about what Punter Southall Aspire actually does.
Okay, yeah, sure. So my name is Alan Morahan. I've been in the financial services industry for over 30 years. And despite over that time, or probably for the last 20 years or so, being in sort of senior management positions, I've always remained and retained a client-facing focus because I very much enjoy kind of meeting with people, trying to help them through the jargon that surrounds our world of money and financial services, and trying to take the complicated or the perceived complicated stuff and making it simple and taking it to a level that people are able to understand. Punter Southall Aspire is essentially a financial services business providing advice to both corporate clients and individuals, covering all matters related to pensions, savings, investments, etc.
Really well put, really well put. Almost forgot I was on mute there. So yeah, no, a really good summary. Thought I'd take a quote from your CEO really to delve into a little bit, actually, Steve Butler, who said the following. He said, "The pension landscape has changed quite dramatically over the last 10 years. The responsibility has been handed over to the individual." Now, I'm sure we can all have our own interpretation of that, but what do you take from that in particular? And is this a good or a bad thing in your opinion?
Well, I certainly don't think it's a good thing. So what Steve was alluding to there is that in the past, often people in the workplace were benefiting from what's known as a final salary pension scheme. And the final salary pension scheme is largely based around the employer taking all the risk. So the employer paid contributions. There were often contributions from the individuals. Those contributions were invested, and then the investment performance on those contributions was at the risk of the employer. If the investments didn't perform well, the employer needed to put more in or make various adjustments. Over the course of the last 20 years, probably, but very much in the last 10 years, employers have moved away from that type of pension scheme to the types of pension schemes that most of us are members of. And all the risk, all the investment risk now sits with us. If our funds don't perform well, then it's us that suffer, not the employer. So there's been a huge transference of risk from the employer to individuals. And at the same time, generally pension contribution levels have gone down. So employers are paying less than they were paying previously, and they don't carry the same level of risk as they previously had.
No, yeah, really well put. And the risk, obviously, well, the risk to me was clear. I just wanted to get that out there, just what exactly this means for people, particularly when they enter retirement later in their lives. And you're absolutely spot on. I think it comes down really to maybe lots of people, because it's handed to the individual, lacking that savviness, say, difficult to say with the lisp, in terms of financial wellness and well-being. And we know that, we'll abbreviate as PSA, and we know that PSA, Punter Southall Aspire, does a lot in regards to financial wellness education. But is this something you believe needs to be more widely talked about, particularly with this in mind?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, if we look at the here and now with the pandemic, obviously for some people, the pandemic has not had an adverse effect on them financially, but for many people, there has been a major impact in terms of the income that they've got coming into their households. And obviously, financial stress can have a very devastating impact on people. Now, some of that can be met with good financial well-being, education, and engagement. So just helping people understand the different ways that they can manage their money can have a very profound effect on their mental health. And I do think that financial well-being and financial wellness is now being recognised as something that needs to be dealt with in the workplace for those people who are working. And employers are increasingly taking an interest in it. So if you look through HR forums, HR magazines, etc., financial wellness, financial well-being is one of the very, very hot topics. And I think that's because HR professionals recognise that financial stress leading to mental health can have an impact on things like absenteeism, presenteeism, leaveism. All sorts of isms are going on as a result of all of this. And whilst financial education on its own is not necessarily going to answer it all, I do think if we give people the right levels of understanding and tools out of which to manage their money, it can have a significant impact on how they deal with things.
No, again, really, really well put. And again, you sort of said the tools of understanding, and it all brings me back, and it brings many of us back, I think, to education at school, which we're all entitled to. And do you think that if financial well-being and wellness and how to stay on top of finances across life and be more aware, do you think if this was discussed and talked about throughout schools at a younger age, to younger people in general, do you think that would lower the amount of people that are finding themselves in these cases of problem debt later in life? Do you think it's key to start that route at school?
Yeah, I mean, it has to make a difference. Now, there will be some children who are currently in school that are living in houses in situations where people are already struggling with finances, and they're probably not being given the opportunity to learn the good habits and the things that they really need to know about to attack financial matters in the way that they might otherwise do so. We do know there is widespread misunderstanding of so many matters relating to finance, whether it's mortgages, insurance, investments, savings, etc. And even for some people, the very basics of interest rates is a complete anathema. They just don't understand all of this. So I think if we start it early, start the building blocks so that people move from education into later education and into the workplace, they'll have a better understanding and be more capable of dealing with the various matters that come their way. I think it absolutely has to start at school.
Well, I completely agree. And the cynic in me thinks this is just so obvious. It's one of those really, I often preach about really that politics is another that should really, politics and economics are two things really, basic economics, that should be taught from a school level, because so many people leave school without the basic understanding of how to get to grips with adult life. And I guess this is more of an opinion question, Alan, so, nothing's law here, but would you say that it's so simple to put into place, it's so simple to have, that this should have been thought of years ago, and the reason it hasn't surely is because some people are going to benefit from a lack of intelligence in terms of how people can live their lives in a sophisticated manner financially and you know, in their own state of mind.
I would sincerely hope that that's not the reason that it's been that way. I do think that there is an element of resourcing about this. So there's already a lot to fit into the school curriculum. So we have to understand that. Then there has to be people qualified to be able to deliver the appropriate messages. But I think if we end up with a more financially savvy, more financially sophisticated society, actually that would benefit society more so than having a situation where people don't have the necessary levels of understanding. So I think it's about prioritization. So governments need to consider what is important. And I wouldn't point to any one subject, but I do think that there are some subjects that probably have little greater value to people later on in life than something as broad as a financial understanding, which is going to benefit everyone as they move forward into the workplace.
No, yeah, I completely agree, and like you, it's just sort of to throw that conversation out there. It's something I've heard thrown around before, and it's nice to hear the other side of it, really, and it's a side I take on board as well. You know, you want a society to be prosperous from a financial well-being point of view, from a mental health point of view, from an understanding point of view. So, like you say, I think it would be nice to think that in the coming years, at some point, that we really do look to address these flaws that we both see as flaws within our society, and we look to hammer these out, or iron these out, sorry, at the level of education, within high schools, within sixth forms. I think that's when we start to enact change, really, when we educate from a young age. So obviously, short term then, recently, as I'm sure everyone is aware, we've been in a pandemic. So that's obviously come with a lot of challenges. Have you personally felt that there's been an increase in people wanting to learn about financial well-being since the start of that pandemic?
Yeah, we have seen that, as I've already alluded to, Jonny. Particularly, I mean, a lot of our business contacts are HR professionals, and you know they've had to bear a pretty heavy load over the course of the last 12, 13 months as people have been furloughed, as people have been made redundant, etc. And quite often, the HR folk are the people that have had to lead that work, and it's been a pretty tough time for them. But the flip side of it is a recognition that actually there is stuff that they could be delivering in the workplace that might help people, and not least of which again is this better understanding of financial products and the financial space generally. Now, one of the things I think that we probably many of us could recognise out of this pandemic is that there were an awful lot of people in this country that had very little in the way of a financial buffer if things were to go wrong. And I think that, you know, certainly when we deliver financial education, one of the things that we're really trying to push for is that thought process that says, well, I really do need to build up some form of financial buffer. I mean, you know, most of us would call it a rainy day fund. Well, you know, there's been many rainy days over the course of the last 13, 14 months. And so something like 3 months worth of buffer fund is probably what people should be aiming for. And it's that type of messaging that we need to get across. And if we learn anything over this period of time, it's to say that you know, our finances can be fragile at times. We never know quite what's around the corner. We could never have envisaged what we were going to be facing into in say February of last year, and all of a sudden by the end of March, most of us were working from home. People were losing jobs. People were being furloughed. finances were being stretched, mortgages were under pressure, etc., etc. So yeah, I mean, there's been a huge increase in interest over that period of time. And I think people will probably have learned some lessons out of it as well. It's perhaps given us the opportunity to almost challenge every bit of spending that we do, you know, whether it's, you know, every insurance that comes through for renewal, don't just let it renew, challenge it, see if you can bring the cost down, kind of making use of discounts wherever it's possible. All of that has been driven very firmly into the minds of people over the course of this period of time.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And hopefully that can be a sustainable thing and something that people look to take with them in the future. One sort of negative positive, if you will, from that, like you said, the hardship many have suffered, and if they can gain lessons from that, then of course in the future, then that's something that maybe came out of it with it as a minor positive, I suppose, to make people slightly more financially savvy. And just to touch on, you said that not many of us would have seen this coming in February, March. I was actually working in China before the pandemic happened. I came back, and yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I came back thinking it wouldn't reach our the United
So it
Kingdom.
was happening in China while you were there?
Yeah. So, it happened. I must stress, whenever I say this, usually people say, "Oh, you brought it back." It wasn't me. But all I'll say is that, yeah, it was happening over there. And when I did come back, our agency actually told us, this is just a brief side note, that it'd probably be over and done with within a month or two. How wrong they were. And like you say, the effects that it's had, not just finance, but on everyone in terms of mental health, it has been absolutely unlike anything we've ever seen.
Yeah.
But away from the pandemic, then onto a bit more of a, I suppose, something you can something quite individual to you specifically. At Punter Southall Aspire, where you're working, Alan, what would you say is your best achievement since working there for you personally?
Okay, that's a real left field question. So I probably would say that actually over the course of the last year, I think that I have kind of stepped up to the plate. So there are a number of things that I could look back on and say, well, yeah, no, I think I dealt with that particularly well. But relating to the pandemic, one of the things that I felt was really important was to try and make a distinct demarcation between the workplace and home life. And obviously, those two things have become merged. So from my business's point of view, I decided that we would work from home a week before we went into lockdown. So we went a week early. And then what I started to do was every Friday afternoon, I would send an email to the whole business saying it's nearly the weekend. And in that email, I would reflect on my thoughts and my experiences over the past week. And then I would look forward to what was going on in my life, in my family life over that weekend. And my reasoning was to say, right, it's the end of this working week. Now go and have your weekend. And then on the Monday morning, I would then send another email saying it's the start of the working week. And I did that for most of last year. And the impact was very positive. So I was sharing lots of personal stuff. I had my 60th birthday during that time. My mother had her 92nd birthday during that period of time. We had various bits and pieces going on, and I shared those experiences, but I also shared when I was having a tough time, when I'd had a bad week, when I was sort of struggling to cope with the volumes of emails or whatever it was. So for me, not directly related to financial education, but definitely related to my management, I think that's something that I've got to be pretty proud of.
Well, no, that's a fantastic answer, and apologies for not sending you that beforehand. I do like spontaneity when it comes to those kind of questions, and a late happy birthday to yourself and your mother. Okay, congratulations on those. And I just, yeah, I mean, on top of that, then I suppose you've given so much guidance and advice already that's going to probably be helpful to a lot of people. But if you could single it down to one piece of advice that you would give to someone who wants to be more financially savvy or aware, what would it be and why?
I think it would have to be around creating a personal budget. So lots of people, I believe anyway, lots of people don't really know what they're spending their money on. And the money just comes in and it goes into a bank account and it just goes in different ways. And you know, they've either got enough money to meet their needs or they go overdrawn, etc. And I know when I used to do a lot of face-to-face individual work, that quite often when you'd start having a discussion with people, they wouldn't really know where the money was going. So I think it's really important to split out. I used to refer to it as the non-discretionary costs, the living costs, and then the discretionary costs. So the non-discretionary costs are the things that you absolutely have to pay. Otherwise, there's going to be very serious and perhaps legal implications. So you know, those are there's no discretion on that. You have to pay your council tax, for example, if you're in your own house. You have to pay your gas and electricity. Those types of things. You've then got your basic living costs, so your food, etc., clothing, that type of thing. So, and then you've got your discretionary costs, your entertaining, the going out, whatever, and have a real clear sight on, you know, how much do you absolutely have to spend on non-discretionary? What can you get away with spending on your living costs? What have you got left over? And in amongst that, are you saving? Are you saving at least something so that you have got that buffer fund that I talked about a few moments ago? So out of everything, I would say it's build a personal budget. And if I could have a second one, Jonny, it would be to challenge all of your spending. So go back to what I just said, you know, challenge the insurance costs, challenge the utility bills. You know, is there anything you can do to bring your expenses down? And if you're able to do that, then squirrel a bit of that money away so that you've got something to fall back on in hard times.
Yeah, we'll let you have a second one, Alan. That was really, it's really well, really well put together thinking there. I suppose it's almost as simple. You were sort of talking about, highlighting the importance and the non-importance, and maybe the short term and the long term. It's as simple as making a full way grid, isn't it? To a point, and then just working from that, which is something, you know, lots of businesses do with their own goals. And I suppose treat yourself like a little business in terms of what is important to you, and almost, and you'll find that there'll be a quadrant where you think, like you said, oh, actually, I thought this was quite important, but we don't need to do it for a long time. And to be honest, is it really that important compared to something that we, you know, like you say, you touch on your own bills and your council tax and whatnot, and your own living costs. And by doing something as simple as that, you could be doing a remarkable thing in terms of your own financial health, because you're planning, you're being sustainable, and you're working out quite a lot of things you probably don't need to be paying for, and you can push them to the side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one important thing to add to that is, if you've identified your non-discretionary costs, the things that you have to pay for, invariably you'll be paying for them on a direct debit. And you can just corral all of those into a separate account. So you say, all of those bills are just going to be paid out of that account. So if my total costs, my non-discretionary costs are £1,000, then as soon as I get paid, I get £1,000 moved into that. I can't go overdrawn. I'm never going to go into that account other than for those purposes. Then you can start to get a clear sight of what you're spending, where it's going, and what you've got left over. And I think it can make a marked difference to people. And there's loads of budget planners out there. You just do a Google search, you'd find, you know, numerous of them. So it's definitely worth doing.
Absolutely, no, fantastic, and absolutely, yeah, not as difficult as you might think, like you just said, Alan. And last question then, what is it then in terms of short-term and long-term ambitions? What do you want to see from Punter Southall Aspire, or generally, what do Punter Southall Aspire want to do, as I say, in the short and the long term?
Well, I think in the short term, we want to continue to build our financial wellbeing, education and engagement piece. You know, we've been on a journey on this over the course of the last few years, kind of broadening our offering into the workplace, into the HR professionals that we speak to, who then are feeding it through to employees of the businesses that we tend to deal with. And I think there's more that we could be doing and will be doing in that space. So in the short term, you know, that is very much the focus. I think in the longer term, it's very aspirational. It's right up there. But I think it would have to be that we have done something that markedly has changed people's relationship with money. Lots of people are quite scared of managing money. They shy away from it. They don't really grasp the issues. And I think if further down the line we could look back and say, actually, we have really changed the thinking on that. You know, maybe as much as actually look as a result of some of what we've been doing, financial education in school and in higher education is actually on there. It's key and core to what is being delivered to students. I think we'd have achieved a lot.
No, yeah, really well put. I suppose you used the word aspiration. I couldn't help but think that could be Punter Southall Aspirational. And you know that's a headline you need to work out on in the future for sure. But no, really enjoyed this chat, Alan. Very insightful on all things financial, and you know, best of luck for yourself personally and for PSA as well going forward. So thanks for talking to me, Alan, and hope to chat to you again soon, maybe.
It was a pleasure talking to you, Jonny. Thank you very much.
Well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to smash the like button, give us a nice comment, and most importantly, hit the subscribe bell. You hit the subscribe bell, it means you can just keep up to date with all of the latest features that come on this channel, whether that be Money Matters or something else associated with Money Support Group. Hit the subscribe bell. Until next time, thanks for listening, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of your week.